I'm gonna start tonight with a little story. And I had the opportunity this summer to make a big holiday, and I went to Sri Lanka. And starting this holiday and planning this holiday, I stumbled upon a lot of interesting topics. And one of these topics was Buddhism. And I did what a lot of people do these days. I started buying books about Buddhism. I started following some people. And there was this monk I started following on TikTok. And in one of his lectures, he was talking to his pupils, and he was talking about relationships between two people. And he got up and drew something like this on the whiteboard. Two people, an arrow in between, and he said, that's how most of you will probably represent a relationship. And then he added that this is a complete misinterpretation of a relationship because the arrow in between, it's not there. There is no mystic force connecting us. There is no virtual arrow. There is nothing. And then he said, shall I create the right diagram here? And he changed the diagram, not in a pretty one as I did, but he said the relationship is actually taking place inside these people. The relationships are actually just memories of each other. And he added that if he would erase the memories of these two people, the relationship would no longer exist. And I found this quite interesting. A bit closer to home, there's another interesting person. There was another interesting person. He's called Daniel Kahneman. Unfortunately, he passed away earlier this year. He's a renowned psychologist. He won the Nobel Prize. He did a lot of groundbreaking work on the human brain. And in one of his talks, he explained something that also got into my memory. I'm just going to show you a little snippet.
I'd like to start with an example of somebody who had a question and answer session after one of my lectures, reported a story, and that was the story. He said he had been listening to a symphony, and it was absolutely glorious music. And at the very end of the recording, there was a dreadful screeching, ching sound. And then he added, really quite emotionally, it ruined the whole experience. But it hadn't. Had the experience. He had had 20 minutes of glorious music. They counted for nothing because he was left with a memory. The memory was ruined.
The memory was ruined, and the memory was all that he had to keep. It's funny that this also has a bit of a weird ending. It was no pun intended. So what he explains here is basically the peak end rule. He had the experience, but the memory of the experience was ruined. And as designers, we can also use these techniques. And in fact, we've all experienced these techniques a lot. And I remember, for instance, in my childhood, my parents would take me to the dentist. And at the end of the not so fun visit, there was a box. And the box went open, and it was full of toys. And I got to pick a toy. And that was intentionally put there to end the experience on a high. Because the next time my parents would ask me to go to the dentist, I would collect the memories of my previous visits, and I got this toy. So again, a very powerful thing here we can do. Next, I want to talk to you about brand and experience. And I'm going to show you another diagram, which I also find very interesting. It's the brand experience symbiosis. And it states that on the one hand, you have a brand. And a brand, what does it do? It frames the expectation of the experience. That's what a brand does. Imagine standing in front of McDonald's or standing in front of a 2-star restaurant. Just by looking at the building, which is part of the brand, you get a different expectation of the experience, right? And then on the other hand, you have the experience. And the experience frames the brand memories. And this is how the symbiosis continues and how people are connecting to brands. Now I'm going to copy my friend the monk here, and I'm going to say that this is a complete misinterpretation of the brand experience symbiosis. But it's not a complete misrepresentation, but it misses something. Because it's not only the brand that shapes the expectation, it's actually also the customer. And today, as customers, we have a lot of power because we can be very vocal. We can use platforms where we can leave our memories. If we had a bad experience in a restaurant, we will go to Google and we will type the hell out of the comment and then say how bad it was and give it a 1-star rating. And I know for a fact from working for restaurants chains that if a restaurant has less than 4 out of 5 stars, there is a dip in revenue of 20%. So that's why a lot of restaurants ask you afterwards to leave reviews, because people are actually also selecting certain brands depending on what other customers say. So I'm already going to repeat a bit of the things that I said to you. So I said that relations are memories, right? I also said that experiences are memories. And I just added that brands are also memories. So basically, if we look at ourselves, we're just vast libraries of memories, right? And I also added that we are quite big-mouthed, so very important. And this brings me to the next part. Because this got us at November 5 thinking. And it got us thinking in another way. And we started asking ourselves, what if we started designing for memories rather than for experiences? Because memories are kind of a big thing, right? They have the power to forge relations between people and between brands. So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. And we call it MX. And for us, it's a new way of thinking. Thinking in terms of creating memories rather than creating experiences. And there is a difference. And I'm going to explain you how this thinking is different than traditional thinking. One of the first aspects that makes it different is that in order to forge a memory, we need to build a connection with someone. Our experience needs to be meaningful. We want people to be moved by our experience, and we want people to have the feeling that we, as brands or as experience, we understand what they're looking for. So for me, this is not about delight. For a fact, I don't like the word delight because a lot of people say, oh, you need to have a bit more delight in this experience, and there's some more delight. I'm not always looking for delight. Actually, barely looking for delight in my daily experiences. So building this connection. And this connection is about connecting to intrinsic desires of people. And I'm going to make this a bit tangible by a small example. This is Base. I guess most of you will know Base. Base is a telco operator here in Belgium. They've been partnering with us for 13 years. We've been building the first My Base app, and now I think we're at the 4th version. And Base has a lot of values. I have 3 values. One of the values is control. So they offer control to people. And if you would apply traditional thinking and say, okay, control, what does it mean? It means that products that they offer have a lot of features that give people control. And I'm going to show you an actual screen we designed. A functional screen. Control means setting certain notifications, setting limitations, blocking certain services, everything to have control. Now, in our research and in our new way of thinking, we said, hey, wait, control, that's not an intrinsic desire of people. Control is actually an answer to an underlying need that you have. And the need that you have is you're looking for security. You're looking for peace of mind. And control is an answer. But if you start ideating from that need for security rather than for control, you come up with different ideas. And I'm just going to put a screen next to the old screen. What we came up with was a guided experience. A guided experience rooted in this intrinsic motivation for the need of security. So actually trying to connect in a conversational way and actually articulating we want to help you avoid unpleasant surprises, which is what we heard the most during customer interviews, and starting the flow from there. And I just put these screens next to each other just to show the difference between the thinking. I'm going to show you a bit more later so that you can experience the flow. Now, how do we came to this? I talked to you about security as an intrinsic motivation. And as a matter of fact, we see 9 different intrinsic motivations. And as a brand or as a company, you cannot connect with your customers on all 9 because then you're nobody. You have no voice, you have no identity. So you have to choose and select what are we going to do. And with BASE it was clearly that we were focusing on the left aspect, focusing on security and focusing on empowerment. So we really wanted to focus on giving people peace of mind and empowering people to feel in control of their situation. I'm going to give you another example just of a brand so that you can recognize how this works. Let's say you need a car, and the primary function of a car is to get you from point A to B and back, right? But if you're buying a BMW, you're also buying esteem. You're buying a piece of feeling confident, a bit of prestige. And if you look at the advertising of BMWs, you will never see a guy standing to a BMW just wearing a shirt. It will always be a suit, and he will look very, very confident, because that's part of the reason why you're buying a BMW. So that's the meaningful part. I told from the beginning there are 2 different parts, two different aspects to creating meaningful experiences. The second one is be differentiating, be distinct. Make sure that people notice you and that you stand out, and that this memory is tied back to your brand. And being differentiating is often quite bold, and you have to be a bit confident to actually show what you're all about. So this is not only just implementing colors and implementing your typography and your logo. Of course, it needs to look on your brand. This also has to do, again, with who you are. What are your unique aspects as a brand? What was the reason people chose you? To make it simple, I'm going to use the same company so I don't have to explain it again. So I told you BASE stands for control. There are 2 other values, and one is simplicity. I hope you noticed in the previous screens. And the last one is fairness. And from the fairness point of view, they also created a very unique product feature in one of their subscriptions. As a BASE customer, if you have data leftovers in month A, you can still use them in month B, because BASE thinks that's fair, right? And they call it data jump. And if I put on my functional hat, and I need to add a feature like that to the app, I'm using the home screen, and I want to make sure that, okay, this person has 10 gigabytes, he has 2.5 left from the previous month, so yeah, he needs to show 12.5, and I just add a line, carry it over with data jump, I'm done, and I'm going to ask my product manager, what's the next feature we're going to design? If you're thinking from a mix, and you're thinking from the fact that, hey, this data jump is actually a unique aspect of BASE. It's what differentiates them from the rest. And this moment is actually quite important. What if we, just for a few seconds, celebrate that moment? Use confetti, like everybody does these days. I'm not a fan of confetti, but in the right circumstances, confetti should be added. So here we're celebrating the fact that you chose BASE, that they were fair to you, and we're reminding you of the fact that is the reason why you also connected with this aspect. And I'm going to use the same example as the car, because I guess we've all had a car, something new. As humans, we have something new. And the first week, oh, we're so proud, and it's new, and we're going to have a drive and whatever. After 3 months, let's be honest, it's our car, right? Same thing with our phones, with everything. Why don't we remind people at certain points in time the reason they chose us? And why do we do that is because a mix is all about creating loyal customers. We want people to say to themselves, I made the right decision for working with this company. I'm a good customer at BASE. And the next time I'm seeing a promotion of Proximus or Hey or whatever, I got this feeling, I've got these memories, these good memories of BASE. I don't I don't want to switch. I'm good here. And that's why we focus on a mix. And the reason I show this is because we inverted our thinking. Traditional thinking starts from functional experiences, consistent experiences, and I think the last 10 years, ever since the iPhone or the mobile phone is in everyone's pocket, as frictionless as possible. Everything needs to be short, one-click checkouts, single sign-ons, needs to be frictionless. But by focusing on that, you will never get to these layers on top. So thinking from memories, we started thinking from, okay, how can we make this meaningful and how can we make this differentiating? And this doesn't mean that every screen should have confetti or every screen should be a bit of meaningful friction. You should pick the right moments that you can make a difference and augment them to a level so that they can become memories for your customers. And the base customers, they didn't notice it because we have the highest ratings in the App Store. And not only in Belgium, these are actually in the top 10 of the world. And we got recognized by Fast Company for an innovation by design this year. And this is actually a bit a part of the flow. So what we really try to do is connect from that intrinsic desire of security, making sure that we inform people, we educate people, so that they can make the right decisions at the end. These were a lot of things that people didn't know. So for instance, one of the things that it's showing is that if you're taking a bus and you're paying by SMS, it will add to your invoice at the end of the month. But if you block everything, you get on the bus, the door closes, and the SMS will not be sent because you chose to block it. So that's all information that you need to know because you want to also have peace of mind at that point in time because the bus driver will not like you if you don't pay, of course. So that's introduction and mix. I'm going to show you one more case that we did, and I'm actually pretty proud of. Us by Night. Who knows Us by Night here? A lot of people went to Us by Night already. Not. So Us by Night is a creativity festival event here in Antwerp. It's actually one of the top creative festivals in the world. A lot of people don't know about it, but the crème de la crème of the creatives come together there. And this year we partnered with them and we created their mobile event app. And of course, we wanted to do this the MX way. So the first question we asked ourselves is, why would you go to Us by Night? And there's a lot of material and functional drivers, right? You want to see cool cases, you want to be inspired, you want to network, you want to know what are the latest trends. There's a lot of reasons where you should go. But if I ask the question to people or to you, why would you go to Us by Night? I'm thinking this. What's the underlying desire of going to a conference? Belonging? Yeah. Or is it maybe for esteem? Going to Us by Night, taking a picture, putting it on your Instagram and showing off that you're amongst all the creatives in the world. We did the exercise together with the founder, Reason, based on research, and of course, his knowledge of his brand, because again, this is what your brand stands for. And we came up with these three. And they were growth, energy, and belonging. So growth, I think that's a bit of the same reason why you are here tonight. You want to learn, you want to be challenged, you want to have new viewpoints, and you want to bring this into your work and see where you're headed. Secondly, energy, bringing people together. Us by Night is specifically done at night because Reason, the founder, he wanted to create this atmosphere of going out for a night and being inspired. I'm not sure if you ever noticed, but going to a conference all day, when you get home at night, usually you just open your laptop and you start like designing and looking up the things that you have seen that day because you are full of energy. And lastly, as already guessed here in the audience, here's a coupon. Belonging. It's a community thing. It's people want to feel part of something. They want to belong to the Us by Night atmosphere. That's also the reason why it's 3 days with sleepovers, staying in Antwerp. That's the reason it's belonging. So these were the aspects that we brought along when designing the experience. And of course, secondly, what sets Us by Night apart? I already told you that there are a lot of top creatives there. So the speakers are carefully selected. and they're actually bringing top talks. So one of the reasons Us by Night stands out is because they get all the creatives in the world on stage. Secondly, I'm not sure if you've ever been there, but they challenge every conviction that you have over a conference. I barely dare to say it's a conference, but they're challenging the status quo on every aspect. And thirdly, and also in the second part, it's actually built around the giant mirror ball. So the centerpiece, when you enter, is a mirror ball. I think it's 10 meters in diameter. It's when you see it, then you're still like, whoa, why and how? But that's the thing that keeps people together, and that's the ultimate thing that sets them also apart. So we made a briefing for ourselves. What if we create an experience built around these talks? These talks are what sets us apart. What if we leveraged AI? Because we want to challenge the status quo. I did not see an event app leveraging AI yet, so that's a first. And what if the main artifact of our experience was actually that giant mirror ball? And what if the experience is all about creating the memory of these 3 nights at Us by Night? So the collective memory. So this is the Us by Night app. I'm going to show a bit of the magic that we did behind the screens. And as you will notice from the home screen, which is looking a bit pale with the night shift, it's not a traditional home screen, right? You're not having your menu, your bar, your navigation bar at the top. You have to look a bit for everything. That's done on purpose. We wanted to challenge the status quo. Other than that, we kept it really simple. And we put the giant mirror ball in the middle. And I'm going to get back to that later. Of course, there's no event app without a schedule, right? So we created a schedule, of course. It's on brand, it looks nice. But here comes the cool part. Every talk was recorded. And this recording was transcribed, was fed to a GPT, and we did some fun stuff with that. So when you went to a detail page, you did not only see the introduction, but you also got the complete summary. And the summary was written by the GPT based on here what I told there. Was also written from an energy and belonging point of view. So we actually catered the whole GPT as becoming a part of the identity. We shared the key takeaways. And I told you also we are here for growth, we're here for learning. We added something interesting. Additional thoughts to make you ponder after the talk. So we, or the GPT, came up with questions so that after the talk, if you read these questions, you can again challenge what has been said or challenge what you can do with it. Now, of course, the integration of the GPT became bigger and bigger because after every talk, we had new information and our memory got bigger. So from the GPT itself, you could just start asking any question. So in the beginning, there were like very, I would already say normal questions because we just had the data from the speakers. But for instance, if you're an architect, which talk should I see? And then we went looking in our vector database, and these were definitely 2 people that you had to see. But you can continue because you're not only an architect, you're a creative, so you also like other stuff. So for instance here, I'm also in 3D. Who should I see? So you could ask all kinds of questions and the GPT would help you along the way. And if the talks continues and continued, then you started also seeing conflicting ideas. Some people said, hey, you have to brainstorm with a lot of people. And other people said, no, creatives don't need a brainstorm. So you could actually feel like all these different viewpoints on the creative world. Another important aspect, as mentioned, is the belonging aspect. So we created a community part where everyone was able to share their thoughts. Just in general, based on talks. Here you see someone who had a very interesting talk. And these were posted in a feed, a bit traditional. And people were able to add reactions, add stuff like that. But then it all comes together, because the mirror ball in the middle was not just a mirror ball for being a mirror ball. It actually contained all the different facets of the 3 by Night evenings, and it became bigger every day. So all the speakers were on there, all the reflections, pun intended, were also on there. Key takeaways were on the mirror ball, and the mirror ball is still today alive on the website of Us by Night and can still be looked at and used as a navigation. So it really is a metaphor for the fact that everyone came together and that it's actually a collective memory of these 3 nights. So showcasing this again, what a mix made us do and how we approach this differently than a traditional event application. So let's recap. A mix is not how it looks, it's not how it works, and it's not how it feels. It is how you remember it. And as a designer, every time I'm saying these 3 sentences, my heart starts bleeding because, of course, I want it to look good. Of course, I want it to make people feel good. But ultimately, what we're doing it for is for that you to remember it. Secondly, it increases the chances of installing positive memories. And these positive memories install, again, this confidence of choice. I made a good choice. I chose the BMW. I chose bass. I chose to go to Us by Night. We're all reinforcing these positive memories. And lastly, and I really like this sentence, is be a preference, not a choice. Stand out. Be bold and dare to be a preference and not a choice. So lastly, November 5. I already talked a lot, so I guess you're all getting a bit of the picture of what we're doing. So we're a digital agency, and we're focusing on customer experience. And we're focusing on the platforms where brands connect with their audience. And we are leveraging customer experience, user experience, memorable experiences to forge better relationships between brands and customers. And we feel like it's the right moment to do so because overall, people are getting less loyal to brands. There's a whole new generation that looks after influencers and not after brands. So they care about what other people say about brands and not about what brands say about themselves. And if you look a bit further into the future, if this entire AI things becomes something, which it probably will, we will all have our own AI assistants. And the next time we need, let's say, a television, we're just going to ask our AI which television. In fact, I already do this with ChatGPT. I need a new television. I need 2 HDMI ports. I want this and this and this. It will ask me a bunch of questions, and then it will say, these are 3 options. What brands should be focusing on today is creating these memories so that I don't ask the question, I need a new TV. No, I need a new Sony TV. I need to articulate that. So in 2-3 years' time, I think that is where we're going to have to work on, making sure that we're findable or remain findable on all these GPTs. I'm going to end with a small movie about November 5, which will, of course, tell a lot more than me. If the audio works, fine this time. No. I'm going to play it anyway.
forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love this concept of using memories and focusing on memories. And I think actually it might be a conduit to open up new types of emotions that we can tap into, because if I think about some of my favorite memories, often they started in things like disgust or thrill or fear, or like a whole new spectrum of emotions that, you know, if ethically used, can also be really interesting as well, you know, or embarrassments or whatever. Like a lot of our memories don't just come from pleasure; they come from weird things that, in afterthought, are fun and cool, and we think of them as good stories. So I think it's a really interesting concept, and we could take it really far, actually. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Really inspiring talk, Vincent. Thank you so much. I want to open up to questions, if anyone has questions or even comments like mine. Yeah, go for it. I'm just going to give this to you because it's for our online crowd.
So about using GPT, my question is, are you not afraid that actually sometimes it could generate a bad memory to the users? Like, for example, when GPT is going to hallucinate or give information that doesn't really match what the user is looking for, because you don't have control over that. And GPT is 90% of the time amazing, because we are still amazed about it. But when it started to do something wrong, then we are confronted. There is something weird that's always happening, and I think it can sometimes generate a bad memory. So, your point on this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And actually, a lot of our customers are afraid to step into this realm because of that. And indeed, but the fun thing with Us by Night then was that Reason articulated from the beginning, said that actually I don't really care. I actually would love designers and creatives to start hacking it and make it say things that it isn't supposed to say. Of course, we added a lot of guardrails, and the information that the GPT had was kind of limited. So every time a question came that was not entirely in, we also just formulated always a funny answer and always made a reflection to, oh, if you're thinking about that, then you should go to this talk, and try to make like a fun pun around it. So that's how we typically also, because we did a GPT integration also for Le Pain Quotidien, in-house, not showing to the customer, and also just there providing the right guardrails and providing the fact that, hey guys, it's a GPT. It can hallucinate, it can say stuff that it doesn't matter, so always check it twice. So I think we'll reach a point in 2-3 years' time where we actually have more control. But as designers, I think we need to start also rethinking experiences, because now we have all the control with the design systems, and we can predict every journey if possible. Yeah, in the future, when we start thinking about these experiences, we just have, like a colleague that we're training and saying, okay, go out in the world and do your job. And that's very interesting, I think.
Any other questions? Comments? Yeah.
If I can have one, also great to have another thought indeed, because we're always trained to make it kind of invisible. To have someone say make it memorable is it's really cool. But my question is, how do you test whether something is memorable or not?
It's another great question. We don't test it as a usability, but we test it for desirability. And we mainly focus ourselves on the fact that we have the ingredients that we take to create these memories are all existing ingredients and are all things that we know of people. And as I said, you cannot test if it creates a memory, because it needs to be in real life. For instance, this base example that I've shown you, if I didn't get up that day worrying about a certain bill, the context all plays. So we tested this on the fact that, do you understand what we're saying? But we never tested it for, will this become a memory? Because that's something you can test, and that's something that requires courage, and that requires confidence that, okay, we're doing the right thing. How are we testing it? We're testing it with data. We had, of course, because now I briefly explained it, we have, of course, a goal of this flows. We knew, our insight was that people who set their limits are less likely to churn, because we saw that in the data. But a lot of people didn't know about this because they were settings, they were hidden. You had to look for them, you had to understand what you were doing. So by bringing this up front, we saw that a dramatic increase in people setting limits. What followed was also the churn going down. So that was the real life test, in fact.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Well, as all of our speakers do, you have earned... Oh,
It's actually a question that builds on his question.
real quick, real quick.
Real quick, how did you test this on the second project on Us by Night? Because I'm curious about those success metrics.
We started designing the Us by Night app. So Us by Night is end of September. We started designing, I think, the middle of August. We started developing the beginning of this September. So you hear in this timeline, there was actually not a lot of room for testing. So it was just going all the way. And we have a lot of insights from people using, for instance, the community aspect, we've underestimated it. It was not that huge of a success. So now we know that that is something that we need to investigate and see, okay, if we're gonna do that next year, we're gonna have to better understand why people would be sharing their thoughts and what was the barrier not to. Because it's one thing being somewhere for belonging, it's another thing taking that belonging aspect into the digital realm, because maybe that belonging desire was already fulfilled just by being there. So that's the things that we now need to learn for next year. So there was no testing involved.
Good question, though.